Hey guys, this is Aziz and it is Tech Time. Today we're going to do another tutorial of the machine problem series, and this one is number 6. This one will have to do with searching through text files and giving statistics about them, about letters, words and whatnot. So let's go ahead and start our tutorial, and let's go ahead and open this Word file. This one is the machine problem. It's machine problem number 6. This is a sample of the output that we're going to do. Let me just explain it really quick. I'm not going to read this whole thing because it explains it more than what we need, and I read through it so I can explain it easier. What is going to happen is we have a text file that contains a bunch of words, something like this, right in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to search through it. We're going to show the letters that we have, which is 26 letters in the English language. There are 26 letters, so we're going to display them one after another from A to Z. Then we're going to show the count of how many A's are inside this text, how many D's are inside this text. Then we're going to show a frequency. This one is showing 2 stars per count. What we're going to do instead is just show 1 star per count, and it shows the frequency of the letters. And then we're going to show the file has this many words. So things like, what if we put a space right here? This one will be a whole string, and this one is not really a word. So we're going to have to avoid that and make sure that we only count the words. And then we only count the English letters, not signs, not anything else, not parentheses. So after that, we're going to do the highest frequency of all of this is 12, or whatever it is that we have in our file. The file sorted alphabetically, then we're going to sort the whole words, and instead of starting from this, we're going to start from letters. So A, and then we find assignment, we put it here, then we find file and put it here. And you see that assignment, it has 6 and dots right here, but it's no longer in here because it's not a real letter. So with that being said, this program also allows us only to do 100 words. It's because I didn't explain arrays too much in as far as structures go, and we can make an array without a size inside the structure, but I haven't explained that. So we're just gonna do, for our sake or our purpose right now, this homework is gonna be just 100, the max number. So let's go ahead and close this and save. Alright, now let's go ahead and open Visual Studio. So go ahead to your start menu and type Visual. There's Visual Studio 2010 and new project. Alright, let's go to C++, empty project, and let's call it text search statistics, or whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to name it number 6 just for formatting purposes. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to our Solution Explorer, open the triangle, right click, source, files, add, new item, and let's go ahead and make our C++ file right here. We call it main just like usual. Add. If you don't have the Solution Explorer right here, just go to View, and you're going to have it right in here, Solution Explorer. We're also going to need a few other things, such as the input and the output. So let's go to the source files, right click, add, new item, and go to the text files right here and type the name of it. So let's go ahead and make it just input, nothing fancy. And in here, the resource files, also we're going to add another item, and let's just call it output because we're going to output to a text file. There we go. In the input, I'm going to go ahead and copy the input that we have. So let's go ahead and minimize this, and there it is. This is the output. This will be available to you on indiedevelopment.co, and it's under the tutorial if you need it, and or you can just copy it from here or type your own text that you want to make up to test it for your own purpose. But it's also going to be available to you on our site. So let's go ahead and close this and close the output, and now we just have main. Now before we go anywhere, I have to explain to you that we do need structures in this program because as time goes, technology develops, and in C++ they started using structures, and the next thing is going to be classes, which is what is used worldwide. But for this purpose, we're going to use structures, and I've already explained structures in the intro series. If you need to look over it, go ahead, but we're going to use it right here. So we're going to make a header file right here, and actually not just one, two of them. So go ahead all the way up, and there's the header file .h, and this one we're going to name it libraries and struct. This one is going to have the libraries and the structures inside it. So let's go ahead and drag it, and you see the circle right here. Go ahead to the right of it and add another file, new item, header, and let's go ahead and include another one, and this one we're going to call it functions. This one was just going to include all the processing, so it doesn't have to be on main. So let's go ahead and drag it and put it to the left this time. So now we have main, we have functions, and we have libraries and structures. For the libraries and structures, we're going to put all the libraries in it. So let's go ahead and include fstream for the files, and let's go ahead and include string for the words that we're going to make. And we're not going to use input and output through the console, so we're not going to have that IO stream, so we're just going to keep it this way. Now let's go ahead and use namespace, using namespace std, and under it we're going to start our structure. Before we do our structure, we need to make the variable, the global variable max, which is 100 words. So it's a constant, it's an integer max, or we're going to capitalize it because it's a constant and it's a global, equal 100. This is just 100 words. You can expand it to be whatever you want. Integers, I believe, go to 2 million, and so if you can make it even bigger if you want. So it's up to you. Let's go to make the struct right here. There's a struct, and we're gonna name it letter frequency struct right here. And let's open and close it. Put a semicolon at the end. Do not forget this semicolon. This is very important in here. It makes a lot of problems if you forget it. Let's go and make the variables right here. The variables are going to be char for the letters that we're going to have, because we need to fill it with letters. As you can see in the Word file, let's go back again and open it. I'm going to just keep it open. For these letters, we need to make them. So this is what it's going to do. The char is going to do that thing. So in here, it's an array of 26 letters, because that's how many you have in the English language. The next one is going to be words. So it's a string because it's a word, and words, and we're going to make it to a max because we only have 100 words. This is going to contain the correct word. We're also going to do a counter integer, a letter counter, and we're going to also do a word counter. That will obviously collect how many letters we have. That will obviously collect how many words we have to keep a constant count of them. And we're also going to do another integer, and I just kept this an integer separate from the rest of them just because it's an array. This one has to do with the frequency, and the frequency is 26 because we only really have 26 letters. We can't go above that. So that's it. That's all we need from the libraries and structures. And I apologize, I forgot to zoom in. Here it is. Here's your zoom in, and let's go and zoom in all of them. I'm gonna keep this for a second right here if you want to copy it or whatever, but I'm gonna go ahead and continue with the rest of them. So let's go ahead and include right here, do include and double quotes, and go to library structures. We're gonna include it right here, so whatever we add, it looks at this file and it can see the libraries, and it can see that we're using std, so it's okay to write whatever we want. And also in here, include, this one will look at the function, so if we need to use the functions in main, we can, and it won't be a problem. So let's go ahead and go under it. And what's happening in here, it's sometimes hard to explain and hard to understand, but in here, this main is looking at the functions. Functions are looking at the libraries right in here. And inside here, you can see the whole libraries that we are using from C++, and the libraries that we have offered for fstream and string, and we're using std, and then it can also look at the structure. So whatever we use inside main is available to us. Whatever we want to use, we can use from functions and libraries, but functions cannot use whatever is inside main because it's not looking at it. It's looking at libraries and struct. So okay, now we're gonna work on main. So void main, and we're gonna go ahead and start inputting, and then we're gonna do the processing for the functions right here. So inside main we need to call the whole structure right here. So let's go ahead and call it letter frequency struct, and we're gonna give it a different name, and we're just gonna call it frequency struct right here, and equal to just 0. Let's go ahead and open it. Seems like I misspelled something right here. The capital letter right here, I misspelled it, and now it's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and close this file since we don't need it anymore. I can go ahead and close it and keep space for these two files right here. So now we have made the whole structure. So let's go ahead and continue with it. Now we need to do the input, but for the input, for us to make the input, we need to make some variables right here. So I'm just gonna call before we even do the structure, we're gonna do variables just to make sure that we know what is this, and we're gonna do char letter equal just a space, and this one is gonna do the letters for the files, and you'll understand it better as we go along. And I think actually it would be better to work with the file before we make the variables and see what we need, and then we make it. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the char off right here, and we're gonna work with the file first, and then whatever we need we'll create it as we go along. So let's go ahead and create ifstream and fn. Let's go ahead and open it actually. Input.txt and ofstream fout or output.txt. Alright, now we have the input and the output. Let's check if the input is opening. Fn dot actually if not fn, then we're going to display an error, fout file is not opening, and return, or actually just exit 0. That would do it. That would exit out of the whole thing. Now let's go ahead and continue with the rest of it and do the input from the file, which is fn, but now we need a word to open. We don't have any words in here, so we're gonna have to go ahead and create it. So let's go ahead and create it after checking for the file, because the processing is better that way. If we make the variables and then check for the file and it's not opening, then we just get an error, then we just wasted some power of the PC. So let's go ahead and just create them right here. The variables that we're gonna need is just all words string, and I'm gonna call them all or input words would be a better word for it. The reason I do that because they are the words that we're gonna take from this input file right here, and they have no meaning to us whatsoever. They're just the wrong words, and we're just gonna deal with them for now until we fix them to the correct words. So we're just gonna create a variable called input words. We input them and then we do the processing and clean them up. So let's go ahead and continue with it, and the next thing we're gonna need is the loop. So this one will make sure that the loop doesn't screw up. So while not fn dot end of file Alright, let's go and open and close the brackets right here. And inside here, we're gonna do the functions of checking the word, seeing what do we need with it. So before we do that, we need to go back and go to the functions, because that's where the functions are gonna sit at. So what function do we need to check first? Well, the word that we got from here is one of those words right here. So let me zoom in back, and I'm gonna keep this file open for us to look at. So we're gonna get this word, but we need to make sure, what if it was, let's say this string? We need to make sure we only get these letters and forget about this. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. We're gonna make a function right here for that same purpose. So that function is gonna be a string function right here. The reason why it's going to be a string function is because later on we're going to make another function that contains these functions, and we only have to put one line in here. I know it sounds like Inception, but just follow through it and you'll understand it as we go along. So let's go to make the function right here, and we're going to name it make clean word. Let's just say that, and let's not worry about what we need to pass through it. Let's just make the whole function, and then we worry about that. So the first thing we're going to need to do is make a string and call it new word, because we're cleaning up the old word and we're making a new word. So that's what we're going to pass back to the function, to another variable that's going to take it. We're going to pass the new word. So that's what it's going to do. It's going to clean up the word and put it inside this new word. So we're going to do a loop for string size type, because we're comparing with a string. We need to do that. I'm going to call it I equals 0 as usual. I is less. Now I is less than what? Now we need to know the word, so we need to pass the word. So for us to do that, we're going to have to pass it right here. String input word, and in here we're going to say input word dot size. So we're going to go each letter and check it if it's a correct letter or not, and we're going to continue with that. I plus plus, and then open and close these brackets, and now the code is going to go right here. Now what are we going to need to do to make sure that it's a letter? To make sure it's a letter, it has to be between A and Z. So to do that, we're just going to write an if statement right here. Now the first condition is here, open two brackets, not two parentheses, not just one. So the reason for that is because we're going to have two kind of conditions. Word at I, so, or actually it's input word at I. So the letter at I, if it is higher or equal to the character of A, which is in the ASCII table is 65. Now let me just open up the ASCII table right here, and let's go ahead and Google ASCII. That is not ASCII. There it is, ASCII table. There's the first one. Okay, let me just show you where is number A. Here is A. Here is 65. So if it is higher than 65, then it must be one of these letters, must be B or one of them. And if it is less or equal than Z, so if it is less or equal, so we're going to trap it between 90 and 65. So if it's one of those, then it is a letter. So and input word at position I is less or equal than the letter Z. Now we close the first parenthesis, that's the first one. So enter. Or actually, let's go back and put double ands, or two ors actually, the or condition right here. Or what if it's a small letter? Now we need to worry about that too. Input word at position I is higher or equal to letter small a, and input word at position I is less than or equal to letter Z, and then put two parentheses to close the whole thing out, and let's put a space right here. Now this condition is going to say if the letter is higher or less than Z, which is between in the ASCII table, is higher or less than Z, right here, right? These letters, all these letters. It can't be this bracket, and it cannot be this @ sign. Same thing with A, if it is higher or if it's lower, with the numbers right here. They're just comparing numbers. They're not comparing actual letters, because the computer doesn't understand letters. So let's go ahead and open and close the brackets. And in here, we're going to do just one statement, and that's it. But I still like to open and close the brackets just for formatting purposes. The statement that's going to go in here is new word. The new word we made up is nothing now. But when we find the letter, we're going to plus equal and words, or input word at position I, close it. Now, what happens in here is, if the letter we're looking at is an actual letter, then add it to the word new word. So for example, let's go back to our example right here. Let's take this one for example. Is this a letter? No, do not add it. Is this a letter? Yes, add it. Is this a letter? Is this I letter? Yes, add it. Is this X is a letter? Yes, add it. Is this comma letter? No, don't add it. So all we're gonna get is SIX, 6, and that's it. That's the new word. So now we're done with making the word. Right in here at the end, because this is a string function, it needs to return something. So the return would be the new word. It's gonna return back a new word. So that's one of the functions we're gonna need. And the next function we're gonna need after we've made the clean word, we need to check if let's see what we're gonna need to do with this. Let's look at the file and see what we're gonna need to do. If we look at the file right here, some of these words are not actual complete words. Like, let's say this. Is this a word? No. It is parenthesis, number, parenthesis. So some of these words, new words, are going to come out nothing, because let's check it now. In our brains, now the function. Is this a letter? No, don't add it. Is this a letter? No, don't add it. Is this a letter? No. Is this a letter? No. So new word is actually starts as nothing, but it's going to return nothing at the end. So do we really need to check it after that? No, we don't. So to avoid that, we're going to write, if it is nothing, then don't do anything. But if it is, then add this word. So we're going to increment the counter. So to do that, I'm going to do another function that will contain these couple of functions. And I'll just do it and you'll understand it. So do processing step 1. This one, or let's call it processing step 1. This is the processing step 1, and let's open and close it. And now we're going to call make clean word, as we have right there. Open and pass a string input word to it. Now I know this has an error still, but we're going to call this function right here. So let's call it right here. Processing step 1. Open and close it. What do we need to pass to processing step 1? We're going to pass a few things. First thing we're going to need to pass is the solve. It's the structure for solving itself. For solving the whole thing, we need the structure. So we're going to call it, and here it is, letter frequency struct and sign. We're just going to call it, or frequency struct. We're not going to change the name. We're just going to pass it as it is. And it seems like I made a mistake with the name again. And there it is. I was thinking about the wrong place of this. This will actually have to go right here. and in here we just pass frequency struct right here, and that's the first thing we're gonna need to pass. The other thing that we're gonna need to pass is a correct word, which is gonna be passed to the other functions. You'll understand it as we go along, so let's just go ahead and make one. Here we're gonna call core word, stands for correct word, because this is the cleaned up word, and instead of the input word. So we're gonna pass core word. We're also gonna pass the input words. It's not capitalized, so it's okay. Core word. This is wrong because it doesn't fit the parameters, but we don't have to worry about that just yet. We have passed all that we need right now, and let's go ahead and go back to here, comma, a string for the correct word. So we're gonna call it correct word. We're just gonna name them differently here, comma, string, input word, not words, just word right here. So here you go, string, core word, and string, input word. The only thing we're gonna need to pass back is this word, this correct word, because other functions are gonna use it throughout this code inside main. Some other function is gonna use it to output, and some other function is gonna use it to process some more or whatever. But the input word, we're not gonna have to pass it back. The frequency structure, we're gonna have to pass it back, so we're gonna keep it this way. So now in here we're gonna call correct word equal this, and the correct word, because make clean word is a string function, is gonna return something. So now correct word will be whatever the new word is. So if it is nothing, it will be in correct word. If it is something, it will be in the correct word. So now that we've done that, we can go ahead and continue the rest of the function. So we've talked about that maybe some words like this one will keep new word as nothing, and we need to skip those. So we can write an if statement in here. If correct word does not equal nothing. So if it isn't nothing, if it has something inside it, then we're going to do sol, or what is the frequency struct dot, and because we do the dot, we access whatever the variables in the structure are, and we're gonna look at the word counter, because now we've made if it is nothing, then we've made a word, and then we increase it. But at let's go ahead and increase it. There it is. And now the next thing is going to be the letter counter, which is frequency struct dot letter counter. How do we count the letter counter? Usually what you do is a loop through the letters and see how many, and then increment them one by one. But for this time, we're going to do it in a better, smarter way. We're going to do plus equals, which is to add to it, not make it equal to, just add to it, and it is whatever the correct word dot size is, because if it is one letter, then it will add one letter to here. If it is 4 letters in the word, then this one will be 4, and we'll add 4 to it. So if we have like in here 4 plus 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, so we have 4 plus 7, and we're gonna add it all the way to this letter counter. So let's go ahead and continue with it. And in here we're gonna do the frequency. We're gonna find it and make it right in here. So let's go ahead and do that. We're actually gonna call the function fill frequency. So let's go ahead and make it right here, void fill frequency, and open close it, right that, and we're gonna go ahead and work inside it. So to find the frequency, we're gonna have to do a loop and loop through the letters. So if we have like tel, we're gonna loop through the letters and find T, add it, find E, add it, and so on. So let's go ahead and do for. It's comparing with a string, so it's a string size type, and we're gonna call it I equals 0, I is less than now the word in here, and we're gonna have to pass it again. So string correct word dot size and I plus plus. There we go. So now inside here, and let me just zoom out just a little bit. Let's see if that would fit it. Okay, this one would fit it. I hope this is okay with you guys. Let's go ahead and continue with it. And in here, what we're gonna do is, this one is a little bit complicated to explain, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it and then explain it. So the structure is gonna have to be passed right here, and the structure letter freq struct and we're gonna call it frequency struct, okay, and frequency struct dot frequency. Now we're gonna add to the frequency right here, and we're gonna go ahead and continue with it to upper. This is just to make our lives easier by using the to upper function. Word correct word at position I, that will give us the letter, and we're gonna make it a big letter, and minus 65, there it is, plus plus. Okay, now we've done that, I'll go ahead and explain it. So don't explain it from this side inside, going inside. I'll explain it from the inside out. So the inside out, this is at position I, so we're starting from 0. Correct word at position I, this one will give us the letter. So correct one at position 0 is going to give us T or E. So let's say it's going to give us T, okay, or let's say it's going to give us A. A is 65, right? So now this one right here is saying 65. Forget all this, let's say it's saying 65. 65 minus 65 is 0. So frequency at position 0, we're gonna increment it. We're gonna say frequency at position 0 is now 1. So let's go ahead and go back to this statement, and it's actually saying frequency struct dot frequency at position 0 plus plus. That's all it's saying if it was a letter A. If it was a B, it's in 1. If it's a C, ABC is position 2, and so on. That's all it's doing. It's taking the letter from the ASCII table minus 65 to position it between 1 and 26 letters, so it makes it easier for us to deal with, and that way we can display them. And now we have the frequency added. So we can go ahead and add this in here, frequency, and let's go ahead and fill the correct word back to it, and then frequency struct. Okay, now we have all this working right here. Now you can run the function, but you may have an error or a problem. There is one thing that I've mentioned since I've started the intro series, that you always need to initialize your variables. Now we forgot one thing. I've done this on purpose just so that I make sure that you know what you're going to be doing throughout this homework. I don't want you to just have the solution, I want you to understand it. So right here, the frequency structure is equal to 0, but are the variables inside it, which is right here, are they initialized? They're not initialized right here. None of them are. So what we're going to need to do is actually initialize them right here. We have to write a function for that. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and make a function just for initialization, and we're going to call it initialize. So let's put it at the bottom, void initialize, there it is, and we're going to open and close it. There it is. Now we're going to need to pass just two things to it, and that's it. We're going to need to pass the letter frequency struct, the structure as usual, struct, or let's call it freq struct, comma, int size. That's all we're gonna need to pass for it, because it just needs to know the size, and that's it. So for, and I may need to explain size a little bit more in here. This is going to be called right around here, initialize, and we're going to pass frequency structure, and the size is going to be 26, because that's all we're going to need for the letters. We only have 26 letters in the English language, so that's it. So the size is going to be 26, and that's what we're going to loop with. So to make that, we're going to do a loop in here for int I equals 0. I is less than size, I plus plus, just a normal loop. Frequency structure dot frequency, and this one is going to initialize the frequency right here, and it's an array, so it's going to be at 0, or at actually at I, because we're looping through it, and we're going to initialize it to 0 right here, equals 0, and we're going to continue with it. The rest of them are going to be similar, the same thing. So frequency struct dot letters, there it is, letters. Now letters are going to be different because we need to fill them with actual numbers. So what we're going to do instead is I plus 65. There it is. What's going to happen is, for the ASCII table, instead of filling it from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to fill it from 65 till 90 for Z. So it's going to fill one by one for the 26 letters right here, and the I is going to be 0 at first, so it's going to be 65. I is going to be 2 second, is going to be 66, then 67, 68, 69, and all of those numbers until it reaches all the way until Z. So let's go ahead and minimize that and continue with the rest of it. Frequency struct dot, and this time it's words at position I, but the words are strings, so we're going to do nothing right here, and here we're going to initialize the counters, and since they're not arrays, we're just going to initialize them once. Frequency struct dot letter counter equals 0, and frequency struct dot word counter equals 0. Okay. Now that we've done the initialization, we got a new word, we processed it a little bit, and we filled the frequency of it. We need to continue with the rest of main. What we need to do is in here to make sure that it actually inputs correctly. Let's go ahead and make sure that this is 160, the zoom in, so we can see everything right here. We're going to need to get the next input. So the next input is going to be just normal input words, and the next thing is going to be for I plus plus, because we're going to have to make integer I right here. Int I equals 0, I plus plus, there it is. And because we're going to have to do a function called fill words, we're going to have to fill the words. So right here, fill words, and we're going to pass to it a couple of things: the correct word that we just made to actually get the word and count that as one of the words, and increment the word counter to make sure it's a complete word. And we're going to pass the frequency structure. We're also going to pass the I, because we need to know how many words we have, at what position we have it. We're not actually going to need the next thing right in here. We have to do one more thing in the processing step 1 right in here. We forgot to do it. After we fill the frequency, we need to do one more thing, which is actually fill the words. I'm not going to do a function for it because it's very easy to do, which is frequency struct dot words, because that's the words that we're going to do. at position I. Now the position I was going to be a problem right here. We need to make sure that we have an integer I right here. So we're going to make int I right here, integer I equals 0, or yeah, let's just keep it as I, and I plus plus right here, and we have to pass I to this function, step 1. So let's go ahead and do I, and let's pass it to step 1 right at the end, just comma int I. That's all we need to do. Or let's give it a different name, x, because we already are using I right here. And or actually we're not doing any loops right here, but we're gonna keep x just to make sure if we want to use a different letter for a loop, we can. So in here at position x, so whatever we are, this is the first word. So the first word dot, or actually equal to, correct word. And I plus plus is positioned wrong. I want you to know this before you do any kind of work on your own, because if you do something similar to this, now what the problem is going to be, position 0 is never going to be filled because we already incremented it. I is going to come as 0 and is going to be passed to here. But before it gets passed to here, now I plus plus. Now word at position 1 is going to be tell, but word at position 0 is still nothing. So we need to position this in the right place. Positioning is a very important thing when it comes to programming. So let's go ahead and do that right under the file input right here. So if the first one is going to be a position 0, the next one is going to be position 1, and so on to continue with the rest of it. So now we filled the words, we need to continue with the rest of it. So now we did all the input, all the processing, and everything that has to do with it. The second half of the processing is going to be displaying the output that we just got. So we're going to call a function called display, and this one is going to have fout in it, and it's also going to have the frequency struct. And in here we're going to put at the bottom, we're going to call the function called display right here, and you can position them whatever you want, the functions. I just position them in here just because it's the easier way. So let's go ahead and call the function display and pass to it ofstream and fout. You always have to do an and because you're displaying something. So and fout and letter frequency struct and frequency struct. Alright. Now inside here we're gonna do the displaying fout, and we're gonna let's go ahead and include a different library in the libraries and structures. Let's go ahead and include IO manip, and I should have compiled my program while I was going with it, but I didn't just because I'm sure of what I'm doing. But as for you as a student or as a learner, you should compile every once in a while just to make sure your program is running fine. So let's go ahead and continue with it and see what we're doing. Now in here, set width, we're going to set width just to format it in an accurate way. The letters is going to be letter, is going to be just 6, so we're going to set it to 6 right here, and after that we're going to display letter, or let's say no, just letter. That's the one thing that we're going to do. And then after it we're going to put a tab. To a tab is a slash t right here, and make sure it's this slash, not the other slash, not this slash, no, this slash, the one above the enter key. And after that let's go ahead and do another set width of the next one is going to be counter. So we're gonna display count, so COUNT, that's 5 letters, so 5 right here, count. And let's put another tab right here. This is gonna do this right here, letter count and then frequency. So the next thing is gonna be set width to the frequency, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that's 9 letters. So let's go ahead and put it to 9. Frequency. Hope I spelled it right. Alright. Let's go ahead and after we finish that, we need to put an end line, actually, not a tab. End line. Alright. Let's make sure of our output and see if it's doing it right. So let's go ahead and compile. Debug, start without debugging. And now we have an error. So let's go ahead and see what that error is. I can already see that it's with the fill frequency right here. Now, one of these problems are that it's not seeing the fill frequency. It's because it's under it. Now we need to make sure that we have the prototypes right here. So it's going to make a prototype of every function. Like that. Let's go ahead and copy the head of this. Alright, let's put it right here. This is the second prototype. And the third is right here. Let's put it right there. Okay, one more function, which is the display. I need to put that right here. Alright, let's go ahead and run it. And we didn't have any console input output, so it just displayed for a second and went away. There's the output, letter, count, frequency. So now our program works just fine. Let's go ahead and continue with it. I'm gonna zoom into 180 in it, and we're gonna continue with the function inside the display function right here. So let's go ahead and continue with it. F out. Or we're not going to do another F out. We're just going to continue with the output right here without putting a semicolon here. The next thing is going to be also set width to 5 and actually 6. And instead of filling it, we're going to actually do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are other ways to do it, but I'm not going to confuse you with it. I'm just going to let you do that. So let's do that, set width to 5. And we can actually just copy this, just to make our lives easier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There it is. Let's go ahead and compile it. Debug, start without debugging. No. Let's see what the error is in here. The error in here is we forgot a semicolon. So let's go ahead and do that. Debug, start without debugging. Okay. Yes to all, just because we changed the file. Yes to all. Here it is. Now we have all of these lined up just perfectly fine. No errors with them. This is the tapping, the tab spacing between them. There's nothing wrong with it. Let's go ahead and continue with the rest of the functions. What we need to do right here is display the rest of the letters one by one and the frequencies and the count of them. So we're going to have to do a loop. So loop integer I equals 0, I is less than 26, which is the number of letters we have. We only want to display 26, and I plus plus. Now inside it, we're going to do F out. First thing is going to be solve, or frequency structure. And I apologize for using solve a lot, for saying it a lot, because I did this kind of homework another time with just the name solve for the structure, because I didn't care for the names, but now we care about the names, and they make the program much easier to use. So let's go ahead and do frequency structure. dot letters. We're going to display the letters first, not letter counter, dot letters, because that's what happens in here. The first you display letter, second you display the number, the count, third you display the stars, the frequency of them. Before we actually do that, we need to do set width to 6, just like we have it right here, to match this. So after that, then we display the letter. Now letters is an array, so it's at position I, and then we do a tab, just like we have in here. We have to do that. The next thing we're gonna do is same thing, set width to 5, and we're gonna do frequency structure dot frequency. We're gonna display the frequency, and at position I, let's put a space right here, make sure it's all positioned right, and then we're gonna display a tab right here. Now let's go ahead and put a semicolon. The next thing that we're gonna have to display is the stars. The stars are displayed differently. So to do that, we need to do a loop, as many count we have, because in here we have the count is number 3, so we need to display 3 stars rather than 6. This one is displaying 6 just because it's 2 stars per count. I'm doing 1 star per count, just makes sense. So we're gonna do a loop for integer x equals 0. Use x just because we use I here. X is less than solve or frequency structure dot frequency at position I, which is what is the number of frequency, how many of it, the count, and x plus plus. And actually this is an error that happens a lot to people, this right here at position I. How do you decide if it's at position I or at position X? You don't know which one it is, but the reason we use at position I in here, because we're going by this loop, not by this one. If we go by position X, we're gonna keep going word by word, but we have to go according to the big loop, not the small one. So I think that explains it, but if you need to understand it better, just ask me. So let's go ahead and continue. F out, just a simple star, but before that let's go ahead and do set width to, or actually just a star. Before that we're gonna do a set width, not right here. So before that, right here, let's go ahead and take that semicolon away and do set width to 9, and then put a semicolon. This one will display, and after it we're gonna do F out and end of line. And we don't actually need to do the set width, because at the end it is unlimited amount of number, so we don't need to set whatever the width of it is, because after there's nothing. But if you want to, you can do what I just did, but I took it away because it's unnecessary for now. The next things that we're gonna have to display is one more thing that we're gonna have to display, which is the files. How many does the file have of letter counters and word counters? So after the loops right here, after this loop, we're gonna display it right here. So F out, the file has frequency structure dot, the first thing we're going to do is letter counter and characters, and then we're going to go under it and say and frequency structure dot word counter. We're going to display the word counter right here, and we're going to say words, and then end of line right here. We can take that period off and put a space because it's a continuous sentence. Let's go ahead and run the program and see what happens here. debug, start without debugging, and yes to all. Here's the output, and now here we go. Now it displays to us the letters, the counter, the frequency, but now there's an issue. It's all displaying to the left, not to the right or whatever. Now we need to make sure that all these letters are to the left. So to do that, we just put one single line, left. That's it. That's all we need to do. Same thing with this if we want to do it to left. Yes to all. And here it is. The letters are to the left, the counters are to the left, and all these numbers are going from the left to the right, and it shows us all the numbers for each letter right here. 17 and 32, 19, 6. And we have 319 words and 319 characters and 74 words. So now we need to do the next thing. The next thing is, after we've displayed all of that, we need to do the highest frequency, and then we need to display the whole words alphabetically, one after another. So let's go ahead and minimize this and then go back to the functions. To do that, it's going to be under main. After that, it's going to be do processing step 2. So I'm here, or processing step 2, and here open it, f out, pass to it, and pass frequency structure, and pass this one is a letter, or we're not gonna have to pass it. We're just gonna have to do it like this, and if we need it, we're gonna pass it later on. One thing that you should use just as a programmer, it would be better for you to use after you use a file. You can right here do fn.close. Just close the file after you've been done with it, and when you're done right here, fout.close. Because in big companies you use a lot of files, and if you clog up the file 24 hours a day, they're gonna fire you, because there are other programmers that need to access files. Like if in a hospital, the files for the patients, you need to close them after you're done. So this is what we did in here after we did the input and processing. So in here, do processing step 2 is going to be a function right here. So processing step 2, we're going to do of stream, f out, and frequency letter frequency structure struct, and frequency struct right here. Okay, and here we need to put an and sign because that's just wrong, and it needs to be going back, and void is the function. Let's just let's go ahead and continue with the function, and then we'll put a prototype of the function back up, all the way up. First thing first, we're gonna need to create, for this we need to do the highest frequency, so we're gonna create an integer, call it highest frequency, and highest frequency we're gonna need to do a function just for that, to find the highest frequency. The reason for that is it uses the logic of it is different than what we would want to do in here. I don't want to do it in here because it's too many lines, and I want functions to be small. So let's go ahead and call a function, call it in here, find highest frequency, and let's go and open it, and we're going to pass to it a couple of things: the letter frequency struct and frequency struct. Okay, and comma. We're gonna close it. Alright. Okay. Now we're gonna call we're gonna make an integer and call it int temp equals 0. Now temp is just a temporary number. Now in here we're gonna do for int I equals 0. I is less than 26 letters, and I plus plus. Inside here we're gonna do if frequency struct dot Now dot frequency right here, frequency at position I is higher or equal to temp. Then the new temporary number is equal to frequency structure dot frequency at position I. And then we're going to return the temporary number. So what's going to happen here is that we're going to have a number, and temporary is 0, and then we're going to have the frequency. So the frequency of letter, let's say frequency of letter A is 17, or a better example would be the frequency of letter B is 1. Now if frequency at letter I is higher or equal to temp, is 1 higher or equal to 0? Yes, it is. So now temp is whatever the frequency, whatever the frequency is, which is 1. Now is 6 higher than 1? Yes, temp is now 6. Is 9 higher than 6? Yes. Is 39 higher than 6? Yes. Is there any higher? No. 39 will stay as the highest frequency of them all. So let's go ahead and continue and make sure that in here we're going to do highest frequency equal to find highest frequency, and we're just going to pass frequency struct to it, and that's it. And now we know what is the highest frequency in here. And let's go ahead and continue with the function right here, and we're going to display fout the highest frequency is highest frequency, and that's, we just need to display that, end of line. And in here actually let's go back to here and put another end line. You don't have to do this one, I just want to do it for formatting purposes. This what I just did was inside the display function, the one above us, and I just put another display end line just to separate it from this one. From this, the highest frequency is this. Then we're gonna do, actually let's separate it with another end line, and after it we're gonna do a selection sort, and we're gonna pass to it the frequency struct dot words right here. We're gonna pass that to it, and we're also gonna pass the frequency struct dot word counter, or actually I apologize for that, just put a comma right here. Now selection sort is a sorting function that someone has figured out and gave it to all the programmers. There are two kind of sorting functions, are the bubble sort and the selection sort. So we're going to use selection sort. I'm going to explain it right here as we go ahead and make it. And selection sort is very easy. So void selection sort, and we're just going to do string array. We're going to call it words, like that, and comma, integer, and size. We just need to know the size and make the array. So in here we're going to make integer I and j, just any integers, any letters. Integer smallest, and a string word 1 equal nothing, word 2 equal nothing. Now in here we're going to do a for loop, I equals 0, I is less than size minus 1, because size isn't actual size, it gives you +1, it doesn't count from 0, so we need to do minus 1, I plus plus. Okay, let's go ahead and do smallest equal I. Now this is the smallest one. for j is equal to I plus 1, and this one I'm just gonna copy and paste it in here for you to see right here. Okay, so let me just change a couple of letters, and you just need to copy it and paste it. This one is going to be word 1, I believe, and the other one is going to be word 2, or yep, this is words actually, and this one is words 2, like this one here, small letter, and word 1 is this, word 2 is right here, str is words, is whatever this one is, word 1, word 2, and right here words. Now let me go ahead and explain this for you. This is a function that even in an exam you just copy and paste it. You don't need to know it, but you need to understand what it does. What's going to happen is for j equal I plus 1, these are just the two letters for the counters for here, and then there's going to be an if statement right here. The if statement is going to do if words at j are not equal to nothing for and the smallest is not equal to nothing, then they're going to continue, and like word 1 is equal to words at j. Now this is the first word we have. Word 2 is equal words at smallest, and in here what's going to happen is they're going to make a temporary variable and check if word 1 is less than word 2. If it is, then the smallest is equal to j, otherwise no. Basically, I'll explain it better in a different tutorial when I explain all of these selection bubble sort functions, and try to explain them better, but it's basically similar to the function we wrote right for counting the frequency, I believe. Let's go ahead and find it. Where is that function? Right here. Here it is. The find highest frequency. That's exactly what it's doing. There's a temporary function. If it finds someone higher than it, then it will make the temporary different, but otherwise it will keep it the same. Same thing in here. That's what's happening. If you have any questions about it, just let me know. I'll try to explain it in a better way, and I'll explain it when I summarize the whole thing. So let's go ahead and just continue with the rest of it. Now, what else do we need for this? We also need, where is the function do processing step 2? Right here. And here, after we did the processing for it, we need to display that this is the words. So f out the words sorted from A to Z, and put just 2 dots. That would do it. And then you just display alphabetical words, and that's another function, display words alpha, just alphabetically. And f out you're gonna pass to it, and you're gonna pass also one more thing, which is frequency struct. Okay, we already have f out and frequency struct, so all we need to do is find just make the function itself and continue with it. But before we do that, let's go ahead and see what do we need to put as a prototype. So we have display as a prototype, so we need to copy void this function as a prototype, this processing step 2 right here. Let's go ahead all the way to the bottom. We have selection sort right here all the way to the top. Let's make sure we already put the periods both places. We're also gonna need find highest is. And the next thing is we're gonna make the display words function. It's gonna be right under it. We're just gonna put it right here so we don't have to go too far. It's a void function, display words alpha, and we're gonna do off stream f out, or put an and sign right here, f out, comma. The next thing is letter frequency struct and sign frequency struct, like that. Just gonna close it, and right in here we're gonna do for a loop integer I equals 0, I is less than max, which is 100, I plus plus, and f out we're gonna do frequency struct dot words. We're gonna display just the words. That's all we're doing right here at position I, and then after it put a space, and then at the end we're not gonna have to do anything. We're not gonna have to do an end line, so just forget that. Let's go ahead and compile it, debug, start without debugging. Now we have an error. Let's see what we have. The error is right here, is just because we didn't put it as a prototype. Let's copy it, go up, put it here, and these are the prototypes right here. I apologize if it was hectic to explain all of that. Let's go ahead and compile it, and the variable I is being used without being initialized. Now we have an error with the letter I. So let's go ahead and abort and see where the error was. Let's go ahead and do that. So the error is going to be in the looping, in the sorting function right here. I forgot to do one more thing, even though it's a copy and paste. I need to do that one more thing. So for int for I equals 0, I thought that I was not initialized, but I didn't pay too much attention for it. Sorry about that. This happened when we copy and pasted from a different place, and it actually we copy and pasted on the wrong place. So smallest equal I. Let's go and run it. Yes to all. There it is. There's the output, and there are the words, and one after another. Of course, capital letters come first. That's why tel is the first one, and then the rest of them just come after it. And we have a little issue with like the words with the letters of them. It's just displaying it one after another. That's because right here, where is it? Processing step 2. Right here, there's an error right here with the words that we gave it in here. So we need to fix that one too. And let's go down to the bottom. The error in here is very simple. It's just this one was positioned the wrong way, and it's gonna have to be inside the loop. So if like the condition is true, then swap it and make sure that it's in the correct area, and after that then we can run the function just fine. So we can compile it, yes to all. Here's the output, and here it is: A, B, 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 C, 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 D, and E, and then so on to the rest of it until the end is P, and that's it. So here's the letters, here's the output, and everything right in here that you need. Let me go ahead and explain this one by one, just give you a summary of it. What's going to happen is we have the input, we check it, we initialize it, we get a new input, we process it, we get the correct word, make a correct word, and then make the frequency the counter, and then we get out, we close it, we display the output right here, and then we check for step 2. To explain those functions one by one, let's zoom out actually to about 120. Here we go. Make clean word, we'll make a new word, and if between A and Z, then make a new word. This new word is going to be used. If it's nothing, then do nothing, but if it is something, then we're going to increment the counter of words. We're going to make the letter counter size how many it is. The letter counter is whatever the size of the word counter, so we add it to it. So 5 letters, and then 5 letters are 10, so that's what's going to happen in here. Fill frequency, this function right here is going to fill the frequency of the letters, and is going to use to upper whatever the letter is minus 65, so we start from 0 and so on. Frequency structure dot words, we fill the words with the correct words, and this is the initialize function. This is the display function, it's just simple displaying. Processing step, let's see what else do we have. Find highest frequency, it uses a temporary function, and if there's a number higher than it, then temporary change, otherwise it stays as the highest number. The selection sort, what happens in here, and I'm gonna give a better explanation of it here right now. It goes from 0 to 100 and checks every word. The smallest one is now equal to I, is 0, at position 0. That's the smallest word right now. So for j equal I plus 1, now we started from the next word. So size, j plus plus, because we're not going to compare the word with itself, we're going to compare it with the word next to it, the one above it. So if words at position j that does not equal nothing, and words at position small does not equal nothing, this is just because some of the words we have equaling nothing, because we have 100, with the max number is 100, but we don't actually have 100 words. So just to be, this is a fail-safe basically. So in here, as it says, temporary variable for accurate sorting, we're gonna make a temporary, and if word 1 is less than word 2, then the smallest is gonna change, and there will be the swapping right here, and that's how it works. If you have any more questions or anything like that, just go ahead and ask on our website, indiedevelopment.co, and go to the forums. All the files are going to be available to you under the tutorial, or ask on the YouTube page. And I apologize I made this very long video, but I wish I've had this help when I was a student, because this whole program took me more than 2 weeks to do, and a lot of people struggled with it. So solving it in about 1 hour or so is I hope it will be a great help to you and whoever is watching it. And please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, just go ahead and ask me. I'll be more than happy to help you. Don't hesitate to ask whatever it is, just ask me, and if I made a mistake, let me know. This is just for the sake of programming, not for the sake of actually letters and words and whatnot and mathematics. It's just for the sake of programming, and I'm just trying to help whoever needs the help. So if you have any questions, let me know. If I made a mistake, I'm only human, just let me know I made a mistake and I'll go ahead and fix it. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you soon.